Welcome to Chief Experience Officer, Brand Experience Magazine's multimedia series that features exclusive interviews with marketing, design, and business leaders expert in delivering elevated and engaging brand experiences. I'm Linda Casey, Brand Experience Magazine's Editor-in-Chief, and for this episode of CXO, I met up with best-selling author, speaker, educator, and marketing guru Seth Godin at a studio and office in New York State. This episode was the brilliant suggestion of mutual friend Julie Annixter. Thank you, Julie, and a big thank you to Seth for delivering frank advice and insights in this episode for both marketers and designers.
A lot of designers are frustrated with marketers who think like advertisers. Advertisers who are just stealing our attention as often as they can. A good marketer may or may not use advertising, but a good marketer brings practical empathy to the table. And practical empathy has a lot in common with design thinking. So what's practical empathy? It begins with this. I don't know what you know. I don't believe what you believe. I don't even want what you want, but that's okay. Because if I'm not willing to say that's okay, I have no chance of having any kind of engagement with you. Because I can't force you to want what I want, know what I know, see what I see. I have to come to you. But if I can come to you, then I can bring in design thinking. Who's it for? What's it for? How can I be really clear about the change I seek to make? And a designer can help me with that, not by making it what the designer thinks of as pretty, but by bringing it with user interface, with, yes, graphics, but mostly with story that lets the person I seek to connect with feel safe and feel seen. And that is where this huge gulf shows up, because too often marketers are marketing for and to themselves. Designers are designing to and for themselves, and they're leaving the customer out of the whole equation.
Yeah, but as we're talking about these different roles and what you're talking about as far as empathy is often perceived as in the traditional role of product developer. So don't you have a developer, a marketer, and a designer? You're having all these roles kind of combine into each other.
So let's think about 50 years ago. If we made a list of all the big brands, they had one thing in common. They made average stuff for average people and they advertised it on TV. Trouble with Pop-O-Matic, right? That's a stupid game. Well, you instantly knew what I was talking about because it had good ads. Now we look at something succeeding, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's Harry Potter or a Tesla or the latest thing from Apple. Those things didn't succeed with ads. There were no ads for the Harry Potter books. How did they succeed? She wrote a good book. What made it a good book? It was a book for the people she wanted to read it. So is that product development? Is that design? Or is that marketing? Well, she's the first billionaire author, so she's got all three in one. And Airbnb, what do their ads look like? Oh, that's right. I've never seen an Airbnb ad. Someone designed a business model and then designed a story to overlay on top of it that was authentic and true and resonant. And now it's the biggest hotel chain in the world. How did that happen? Was that marketing? Was that design? Was that product development? I would like to say it's all of the above.
If product development is part and parcel of what everyone needs to do as marketers, as designers, what is marketing today? I mean, marketing is traditionally, pushing out a message and measuring it.
Everything is marketing, right? The stuff you're dumping in the river is marketing. Your diversity practices are marketing. The way you pay your people is marketing. The products you develop, the way you talk about it, the marketing department runs everything. And if you work in an organization where that's not true, it means you have incompetent, untrained people doing your marketing. So what I've been saying to ad agencies for 25 years is the number of ads P&G is going to run is not going to go up. So if you want to do better work, you've got to take the privilege you have now and go to the CEO and say to her, let us work with your designers. Let us work with the product development people. Because the Volkswagen Bug worked because someone in product development did something that they could run those ads for in the 60s. And if we can get people who think about design and marketing way upstream, we can build better organizations. And my new book, the subtitle is you can't be seen until you learn to see, right? Which means we have the chance to make things better by making better things. But the way to make better things is by seeing. What do people need? What do they dream of? What do they want? What are their status roles? If we can show up in the right place with the right stuff, it looks easy. because we have the wind at our back.
And the challenge, though, of course, is that one of the biggest things to change is the processes, the internal processes,
Right.
the internal structures. I mean, you talk about how that's so necessary for success. And I can't remember which one of your books, but you do talk. I remember reading your words about that and thinking that is so true, but it's so hard. Maybe you can have that conversation if you're the CEO and the COO. Possibly, maybe the CMO. But if you're the marketing manager or you're a brand manager, you've got a lot of internal discussion, internal protectionism that you have to fight
Sure.
in order to bring this philosophy.
Yeah.
How can a brand manager be able to bring
It's
this
a great
philosophy?
point. You know what's hard?
Mm-hmm.
Heart surgery is hard, right? You know it's hard? Climbing Everest without oxygen is hard. This isn't hard. This requires bravery. It requires taking responsibility. Because most organizations don't like giving out authority, but they're eager to give out responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a brand manager, and I lived through this. I was desk by desk by desk sitting with all these people who had years of brand management experience. I had none. I didn't know how to do it right. I just did it the way I felt like would work. And what that means is that if you walk down the aisle to the R&D department, they're thrilled to see you. And if you figure out how to bring the voice of the consumer into the walls of the factory, people will listen. So one thing that I advise marketers to do is take your cell phone, go out in the world, aim it at your customers and say, what do you hate about our company? And what do you love about our company? And edit that into 90 seconds. And just show those 90 seconds to people at your next meeting. People looking straight at the camera and say, every time I call you on hold, you put me through the void, I'm leaving. Over and over and over again. Now, after 90 seconds of that, now we're having a meeting about the budget for the call center, which you don't run, but which impacts your brand. The meeting is going to go differently because you took responsibility. You said, you want to hold me responsible for my brand? Guess what? I don't want to run the call center, but we need to spend twice as much money there. I'll give up ad money to make our call center better. Because guess what? Losing a loyal customer is way more expensive than me going to find somebody who's going to try us once.
We live in a fast-changing digital world. Dynamic communication and social expression influence just about everything we do. Business is digital. Impact is instant. Brands and customers interact in amazing new ways. From postage stamps to packaging and billboards, HP's Graphic Solutions business is leading these transformations, creating innovative digital print technologies that enable more effective, engaging communication between brands and end users.
A friend of mine who used to work at General Mills, they in 90 days made all their cereals whole grain. In 90 days, a 150-year-old company, right? How did they do that? It's because someone who was on the marketing side stood up and said, we're going to change this. I take responsibility. I'll go to every meeting I need to go to until someone tells me why I can't do it. It's on me. I'm going to make that change happen.
Yeah, but going to every meeting that you have to go to make that change happen also takes your productivity and brings it to a halt.
Productivity is doing what? Right? That if your productivity is based on convert $50 million of interrupting ads into $100 million worth of revenue, and the ads don't work anymore, being more productive at running the ads that are losing you money is not going to get you where you're going. Mm-hmm. Right? Just because you're lost doesn't mean you should go faster. It probably means you should get a map. And the map says, guess what? We can't interrupt ourselves into success anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We need to go from organizations that keep track and tally up tasks, tally up what people do, into organizations that are going towards them.
Right. Because Mr. Proctor and Mr. Gamble were right when they built their company. Mm-hmm. But they're wrong now. And Walmart controls the price and the volume of Tide sales, not Procter & Gamble. They're their biggest customer. They decide. And they're not going to get any new customers for Tide. They have all the customers they're ever going to have. So what are they left with? They're left with a company that can't keep making average stuff for average people at scale. Something's going to have to change, or they're going to slowly shrink like Sears. And Sears learned a really important lesson, which is not that retail is dying, but as Steve Dennis has pointed out, it's boring retail that's dying. It's the middle. If it's not worth me going out of my way to pay extra for something branded, I won't. And all you got to do is go look for, some edge product on Amazon, and what you will see is 10, 15 unknown brands made in China, direct from the factory. They're just as good. They have good rankings. I'll buy one. Right? So there's no room for a marketer in that equation because they all announced they're all the same. And if they're all the same, hit the sort by price button. And if sort by price is your enemy, then the way out is not to get cheaper, because that's a race to the bottom and you might win. The way out is to be different, the only one, the one that's worth seeking out to keep me from pressing that button. And too many organizations, designers and marketers, are forgetting that.
We often think of commoditization. We say, how can we market against commoditization? How can we use storytelling to fight commoditization? But it seems like what you're saying is more find out what your deliverable is beyond the commodity so that you can deliver something different to the customer.
Yeah, a lot of companies act like they want to be a commodity. They say they don't, but all hotel rooms are dark at 3 o'clock in the morning, and all bottled water is, quote, pure. Well, if all bottled water is pure, why don't I just buy the cheap one? Because you just told me it's all the same, right? It's a commodity if you treat it like a commodity. But if you don't treat it like a commodity, if it comes with all these other things that connect me to who I want to become, then I'll pay extra for it. That's all I will pay extra for. Because guess what? We solved the quality problem a long time ago. I can buy quality cheaper than you can sell it to me.
But we have the question of scale, because obviously when you go into a more niche market, boutique, you can command a higher price. You're delivering an experience versus a commodity. But scaling that up to get a bigger piece of pie, get a bigger target market, not kind of moving away from the edges to capture that large group in the middle. I mean, that seems almost elusive. It
is, because they're hiding from you now. It used to be the middle was the end cap at Walmart. The middle was NBC at 8 p.m. It's gone. NBC at 8 p.m. The end cap at Walmart. You can't win by being in the middle. The people in the middle are in the middle because they don't care. They're in the middle because they didn't bother to go to the edges. It's at the edges where the interested people live. The people who will pay extra are all at the edges. They go to the Consumer Electronics Show. They read Wired magazine. They're getting Vogue magazine. They don't get Vogue for the articles. They get Vogue for the ads. They're at the edges. So if you want to sell $600 shoes, you need to sell it to people who read Vogue. If you want to be in Payless, there's no mask there for you anymore. It's gone. So my point is we have to recalibrate and begin with the smallest viable audience, not the biggest potential audience. Smallest viable audience means specific. I pick you and you and you to be my customers, and I made this for you. Since I can pick anyone I want to pick, I will pick people who are listening to me, who know they have a problem, who are eager to solve the problem, and want to spend money to solve the problem. If I can find those people and delight them, you know what they will do? Tell their friends. And then the word will spread. And bit by bit, and drip by drip, it will get to them. So let's think about something like the TED conference. TED, when I went for the first couple of times, was 300 people. Is that small enough? Right?
It's time.
Now, it is the #1 provider of nonfiction video on the internet. Billions and billions of videos served. Right? It's still not for everyone. In fact, many people watching this have never seen a TED video. Fine, not for you. But if you begin with the small group that would miss it if it were gone, and delight them without an excuse of, well, I had to make it for everyone, sorry, it's horrible, then you have the chance. Another example, Shake Shack, McDonald's. McDonald's is bigger. McDonald's will always be bigger. But the satisfaction, the profit, the upside at Shake Shack, no comparison. Because Danny built something for the specific, not for the many.
Now, that kind of gets me thinking, if we're building something for the specific, and these specific people are also people who share, doesn't that change what our marketing vehicle to the middle is, though, in a way?
Exactly. Exactly right. So what it means is that we're not going to overpay to be on the Super Bowl. It means that we're not going to spend money the way marketers used to spend money.
There's nothing a marketer loves better than seeing that ROI spreadsheet, right? And so we know how to measure results from a Super Bowl ad. When we measure sales go up, and it's like most things. Successes, they have many founders.
I'm so glad you brought this up. In 1993, I started selling online media before almost anyone on earth, and we invented email marketing, and we would go and talk to companies, and they say, well, what's your ROI? And I would say, well, what's the ROI on that TV ad you ran last night? And they don't know. Marketers like that. Marketers like that there's no ROI. You know why? Because if it fails, not on you, no one knows. The only Super Bowl ads you can actually measure are Doritos ads, because Doritos and the beer companies make enough money during halftime when people run out to buy more that the ads pay for themselves. Everybody else, how exactly do you measure a Chrysler ad or a Chevy ad on the Super Bowl? You can't. They like that. You get good seats at the game, and no one can say you did a bad thing. On the internet, on the other hand, when I was at Yahoo, the homepage was sold out for a year and a half in advance. There was an ad on the homepage. And people used to run the ad and not even receive the reports of click-through. They didn't want the reports of click-through. Because if you got the report, you had to say to your boss, we ran this banner and no one clicked on it. Direct marketing is a scary place to be. Because direct marketing is, I made this and it worked. Or, I made this and it didn't. So there are very few actual direct marketers in the world. And when I got into the Direct Marketing Hall of Fame, they looked at me sort of funny because I never bought a pile of stamps in my life. But I've understood the measurement mindset as a bootstrapping entrepreneur for a long time. And when you go and call on somebody and say, well, give us $100,000 and you'll make $200,000 in a week and we can prove it, they're saying to themselves, uh-oh, what will I do with all my other ads?
But bringing that different kind of change in the world and looking at the long haul is kind of at odds at the current, I would say, the current culture in marketing.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, CMOs don't usually have a long term at a company or a brand.
Do you know why?
Why?
18 months is the average. Because it takes 16 months for the CEO to realize that all the things he was hoping you were going to do are impossible. And then 2 months to find your replacement. That the problem is, unlike chief accounting officer or chief technical officer, we keep insisting that marketers are brilliant geniuses who will fix everything, even though they have no leverage. That marketing is this magic wand. And it takes a year and a half to figure out it's not a magic wand. And so we replace the person and then get hypnotized all over again. So part of the job of the CMO is in the first few weeks, A, don't speak a lot so that you can learn something, and B, make it really clear what you're going to do and what you're not going to do. Because if you promise an overhaul and perfection, they're going to be really annoyed at you. So yeah, you need time to build something that matters. And we've seen institutions go through these shifts and come out on the other side, truly transformed. And we also see old school industries where they just circle the drain and then they're gone. Because they don't have the guts to fix it.
Yeah, having designers have that kind of innovative kind of way, product thinking, being able to bring that to them and talk about development and talk about what's realistic, because they often have to take an idea and bring it into the real world.
That's right.
PrintPack, converting vision into value. At PrintPack, we believe in creating packaging solutions that deliver positive results for your brands. Collaboration at the very beginning of a new product or package design venture is the key to success. Our innovation approach combines your vision with our knowledge of consumer trends to create packaging that enhances your brand and drives your success.
Marketing and the design community have always had this really kind of strong relationship, and I know that you've even seen more opportunities for more of a synergistic relationship between the two, and you guys are working towards kind of getting the word out about how you can make that relationship better.
The design mindset is more important than the designer's toolbox. Everyone has a camera. Just because you have a camera doesn't mean I need to hire you to use it. It's the way you see the world. It's your point of view. That's what's so valuable. And what that means is you need to think more like a marketer. And what it means for marketers is that they need to think more like designers. And as a teacher, I keep trying to help people see a little outside their lane, because that's where they can add so much value. And we run a seminar called the Marketing Seminar. That's 100 days about marketing. But the people we really want to take it are designers.
But, you know, designers have these conversations, marketers have these conversations, and we bring it to the CEO. CEOs in our audience sometimes tell us that people always think that we're the ones making the decisions, but we actually have a board that we have to answer to. So how do we continue this conversation even beyond the walls of the corporation?
Well, so I think part of it is owning it. If you take responsibility and give away credit, you will be amazed at how much leeway you actually have. If you do tons of small things until you find one that works, and then you go to your boss's boss, and say, tell everyone this was you, it will start getting adopted because it worked, right? And if you're willing to give up that credit, that's magic. When you go way up in the organization and say, I want to change everything, okay? Of course they're going to say no. Because what you're really saying to them is, I want you to take responsibility if it fails, because you said yes, but I want the credit if it succeeds. That's a lousy deal. What I'm talking about is not a wholesale soup to nuts renovation. I'm saying, we just discovered something really important about a back and forth here. We just discovered that if we rearrange the bank so the teller stands next to the customer, not behind bulletproof glass, X, Y, and Z will happen. You don't need the CEO's approval for that. You don't need the board of directors' approval for that. You need to do it in one test location. And then you can do it with a bank manager's help in a second one. Once it's working in two, great. Let the boss steal your idea. And suddenly you've made a significant shift in the posture of the organization. Or when I was brand manager back in the 80s, on Christmas, we sold a product there was a gift, software. And so on Christmas, I went in and did customer service because I had nothing else to do that day. And I just answered the phone all day from all these people who didn't think anyone would answer the phone. So I spent 8 hours answering everybody's questions. And you can bet that 2 weeks later, when everyone was back in meetings, and I began a sentence with, and the day I spent answering the calls in customer service, I learned blank, right? That goes a really long way. Because I'm just not making stuff up. I was there. I talked to the customer. And I discovered if we do this and put a little slip of paper in every box that says that, we'll cut our customer service calls in half. It wasn't very hard to get an okay on that. I didn't have to go to the board of directors for that. So what I'm getting at is, I wrote a book called What to Do When It's Your Turn. And the subtitle is, It's Always Your Turn. And people in even really big companies and bureaucracies have way more power than they think. It's just not easy, but it's there.
So a lot of what we are talking about is actually organizational design for marketers.
Ding, 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 ding. You got it. You're going to learn if someone creates an environment where you are surrounded by people who you trust and who trust you, where you can do work, where you can do this work. And once you do the work, then you start to see the organizational design. Then you start to see how to be in the world. It's called experience. So we create these environments where lots of experience happens in a very short period of time.
It has been an absolute pleasure.
The time just flew. You're great. Thank you for making the trip. I really appreciate it.